Okay, good morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners. The date is Tuesday, October 16th, 2018, and the time is 9 a.m.
Roll call. The record reflect Commissioners Ibarra, Glazier, Hara, Ninberg, Woodsquare are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President.
Flag salute. I'm going to sign.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So we begin with Commissioner comments.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I just want to say thank you so much to the Historical Society, the Chief, and UFLAC for putting on such a beautiful memorial this weekend. It's so important, and it's so great to see how tight of a family this community is and how you support those widows and widowers who are left. So it was really wonderful to see that, and I want to thank everybody for showing up and my fellow commissioners who were there. It was very moving. I also went to the Women and Girls event, which was fantastic on Friday, and I want to congratulate the department for, especially recruitment, for getting the numbers to up to 10% female. So that you got a good shout out there. And that was very impressive, and I want to Chief Rideout as well. Thank you. Yes, it was really empowering and really encouraging, and so thank you so much. That's it. That's my report.
Likewise, the memorial event was phenomenal, and then actually, you were also at the Marjorie Browdy Award presentation. Go ahead.
Chief Rideout. Wait. Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yes. So yeah, Nikki Berdowie. Oh wait, Chief Berdowie was awarded the Marjorie Broad Award for her work in human trafficking and domestic violence and bringing that training here to Los Angeles, which has resulted in multiple saves. So I want to congratulate Chief Berdowie, thank Commissioner Dr. Hara as well for being there, and the command staff who was there as well. That was, it was kind of a whirlwind few days, so it was great, and congratulations. It was well earned.
Okay.
I also attended the memorial. It was a very nice service, and it's always one of the most special days of the year, I think, for our department to have that memorial and do that. So I was glad to be able to attend, and thanks to all who helped put it on. I also had a nice lunch and ride along with Fire Station 82. So thanks to them for hosting me. And I think that's it. Thanks.
So moving on to report of the Fire Chief.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, attended the memorial on Saturday, and it was a rainy day, and wasn't sure of the turnout, and it was, I thought it was probably one of the most well-attended ones I'd been to, especially when it was upstairs in the old Fire Station 27. And I said then, and I truly believe that it's kind of bittersweet, because you see the kids thriving and you see the spouses surviving and moving through the loss of a loved one. You never get over it. I think you get through it. We still have a connection to all the various families from, Lisa Reiner over 20 years ago recently signed some paperwork so her kids could go to college. And Kelly Wong, and Colton is probably about a year and a half now. Kelly, his family is moving on, and they won't forget him. they had a national memorial in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and Chief Kwame Cooper was there to escort her to that memorial. The Mormon family, their daughter is attending college, and because of the benefit, the public safety officer benefit, and the law that says in the state of California that you get free tuition, she's attending college. So it really is a great opportunity. Kim Reddy was there too with her kids. And I want to talk about what we're doing proactively to keep people keep their names off that wall. And I mentioned 4 things about changing how we deal with risk management, how we use technology to use drones, and the new thermal image camera that our goal is to get one for every firefighter. The other things were we hired the 3rd psychologist just 2 weeks ago. Now we have 3, 2 on the department and 1 with the labor, to provide counseling whenever requested. We used to have 1. Now we have 3. And our peer support team is growing. So, and then the last thing I mentioned there was our skin cancer screening program. Day 1 was last Friday, and we had 175 members get screened for skin cancer. This was a partnership with USC School of Medicine and UFLAC in the department. And when we were presented the opportunity, I knew we were in. I didn't know how we were going to do it, but our people did it. And our people are taking advantage of this. And I think that's how we keep their names off the wall. So thank you all, department members, commissioners, everybody who attended. And that has to be our inspiration. How do we protect our people the best we can? That concludes my report.
Thank you. So now verbal report by the department on significant incidents from October 2 to October 15th.
Good morning, Madam President,
Morning.
Commissioners,
Morning.
Chief Terrazas, City Attorney. Good morning, Isela. I'm Ellsworth Fortman, Assistant Bureau Commander of the EMS Bureau. On October 2nd, we had an engine and rescue respond to a patient with chest pain. Patient was found outside his home walking on the sidewalk. He had a cardiac arrest event right in front of our crew. They initiated immediate resuscitation efforts, CPR, shock, IV, and were able to regain breathing and pulses and blood pressure. And the patient was totally awake and speaking by the time they got him to the hospital. On October 10th, we had an engine and rescue respond to a 15-year-old female in cardiac arrest. There was dispatcher-aided CPR happening by a bystander. And again, our engine and rescue initiated resuscitative measures, and she was transported to Children's Hospital with pulses, spontaneous breathing, and blood pressure. On October 13th, we responded to the Century City Mall where we had a 56-year-old male who had a witnessed cardiac arrest. There was bystander CPR, which was aided by our dispatchers, and also the use of a public access automatic defibrillator. That patient had regained pulses and blood pressure prior to our arrival and was fully awake and is actually still in the hospital, but in advanced treatment now from that cardiac arrest. And then finally, on October 14th, we responded to the southbound 405 freeway at Nordhoff for a traffic accident. That was the bus versus an auto or several autos. We did have a total of 40 patients that we evaluated. 25 of those ended up being transported. We had 5 that were serious. Their ages ranged from 30 to 88. Injuries were serious based on nature and mechanism of the accident, not necessarily their injuries, meaning they all should recover. The other 20 had just a range of minor injuries. We utilized the MCI incident management part of it, contacted Medical Alert Center for hospitals, and the incident went pretty smoothly. And that's the end of my report, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a report from the medical director. So That's for ABC. We have no presentation, so we can move on to consent agenda items. And we need to take 4H off the consent calendar because there is some changes to the recommendation. So do I have a motion as to the rest of them?
Yes, move to adopt items 4A through G. Adopt the recommendations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So now for 4H, can somebody from the department tell us what the revised recommendation is going to be?
Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Acela, Muriel G., Senior Management Analyst 2, Contract Section. I would like to make a verbal amendment to item 4H and add number 2 to the recommendation section to read, transmit the third amended agreement C-125630 to the mayor in accordance with Executive Directive 3.
Great.
That's my change. Thank
That's the
you.
amendment. Okay.
Okay, move to adopt item 4H as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. So now, moving on to 5A, which is report by the department on the update of the Los Angeles Fire Department Youth Development Program.
Oh, wait.
Am I looking at the right one?
Yes, sorry. Actually, was hoping we could discuss I didn't realize the unwanted alarm enforcement was in the consent calendar. Can we actually move that to the regular agenda item? Is that possible too?
Which one was that?
Adjust that so we can actually hear about it.
So, do you want to start with that?
Sorry, yeah, can we start with that one? Sorry, my fault. I was looking at it and realized it was on the consent item.
Which number was that?
Yeah.
This is item 4E.
4E. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, Council, and Acela. I'll just be giving a brief update on our second quarter of our unwanted alarm enforcement program. Basically, in front of you, you'll see our report with a number of statistics. The good news is the unwanted alarm program is working. We're seeing all of our numbers trending down. Specifically, we're focusing on April, May, and June. We compared that. So let me go ahead and walk through our second quarter. The number one thing that we see that's actually working is a referral program. And what we did is we put the referral program, it's a form that the field can utilize. And what they do is anytime they go to a specific occupancy 3 or more times in 30 days or 3 times in one shift, they refer that occupancy over to us. With that, we've seen a total of 91 requests for the second quarter, and that is also trending down, which what is working for us is once we get the referral, our legal unit then takes that, looks at Brycer, which is our unwanted alarm program. They're managing that as well. What they do is they look in Brycer, they'll look at the Reg 4s and see if they're compliant. If not, then we can start the enforcement process. We also work directly with a higher level management to ensure that they are aware that they're out of compliance. And what we're seeing is that the overall unwanted alarms are trending down. So the referrals are working. The second thing that we're doing is we are also running a monthly audit, and that is just by using the metrics that we have through Brycer. And you can see from April to, what we did is in that number 2 item is we compared the first month of the first quarter to the first month of the second quarter, and we did that for the 3 consecutive months. Each of those are trending down. You can see from 84% which decreased, as well as it decreased the second month of the second quarter, 76%, and then trended down to 69% when we compared each of those quarters from first quarter to second quarter. And lastly, another thing that is working that we're extremely proud of is working directly with LAWA, and which is Los Angeles World Airports. And what we saw was a continued increase in our resources going to LAWA for unwanted alarms, and the majority of those alarms did occur between 12 o'clock in the morning to 7 a.m., and that was due to the peak hours of construction. And by working directly with them, you can see that it's also trended down from April, May, and June. And that was a total of 129, which was a 22% decrease in the overall unwanted alarms at LAWA. So those three categories, or those three steps that we're taking within our unwanted alarm program are working and is trending down. And lastly, what we continue to work on directly with the city attorney is our ordinance that we're developing. And what that ordinance will allow us to do is to utilize a third-party vendor who will track these unwanted alarms specifically, and that's where the ordinance will allow us to collect a fee, in which we'll be able to collect and reimburse for the use of our resources. And the good thing about that as well is that that will keep those resources available for emergency calls. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, sorry to spring that on you, by the
Sure.
way. I just, if I'd noticed that sooner, I would have let you know. So my apologies for not noticing
Sure thing.
it on the calendar the wrong way. So a couple questions. I'm really happy to hear the reporting is going up. I know that is obviously a key tool in the toolbox for combating these, is to actually know that it's a problem and then bring to bear the resources we have to try to fix that. So that's great. On the decreases seem, obviously positive direction. For the airport, if somebody pulls on a pull station, would that be considered an unwanted alarm?
No. That's the alarm actually functioning correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's human error on that side, which isn't considered an error, at least from our perspective, that person pulled it, the alarm sounded the way it was supposed to, so we would not consider that an unwanted alarm.
Okay, so while I get that definition from my conversations with the crews surrounding the airport, it may not be unwanted, but it is a nuisance. It sounds like it happens when people are late for their flights and they pull the pull station thinking it is going to delay the flight. Newsflash for our listening public, it does not slow the flight down. It just causes a problem for everyone else. So you're still going to miss your flight. One idea that came out of that was to, I think it's a cost of like a couple bucks per alarm, is to put plastic pre-alarms over each of them.
Right. Per the fire code, we can mandate that. So if we, again, continue to work with LAWA, find out where those problematic areas are,
Mm-hmm.
then we could utilize that type of alarm.
Yes. So my only point of bringing it up is that it's not captured as an unwanted alarm.
Right.
So I'm concerned that that is a specific kind of nuisance alarm
Sure.
that is not captured anywhere in the statistics. So therefore, I know that's been a problem for a while. So if you could just consider that, look into that, and make that part of the conversation with LAWA to see, I bet you that the crews in the area would even sort of rotate through to install them themselves. They probably would like to see it fixed that badly. But if that's something you could just look into with the airport and make that part of the conversation, that would be great. As far as the construction goes, I think that's great. So this is the total number of construction-related unwanted alarms?
That's what we're associating those mainly with. There were a number of other automatic alarms that were not caused from construction, but the majority of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just working closely with the construction workers. We're even educating them in regard to how to properly, bag the certain areas so that we don't have unwanted alarms. So the good thing is we have a very positive relationship with LAWA, and they want to see these decrease as well. They want to decrease it even more once we get the ordinance, because there's a fee associated with that. So we're leaning forward on this so that we can really get those numbers down so it doesn't negatively impact them fiscally as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we do get the ordinance, I think we all know that the intergovernmental fees are very difficult to collect.
Right.
So I would encourage you to talk with them about including in their standard construction contract a provision that if an unwanted alarm happens, that the contractor is liable for that fee, whatever it may be. They do a ton of contracts over there, and if they could put that in the contract, that would give us a future tool to be able to collect. So I brought this idea up before, so I just want to remind you that if you could bring that up with the airport to say, can you put a provision in the contract that says, If you violate and cause an unwanted alarm because you do not do the steps that we've trained you to do, that fee is borne by the contractor, because otherwise we will never collect on it. So if you could just keep me posted on that particular suggestion, on how that could go with the airport, that would be great. So the rainy day, I know this is a huge issue on rainy days. It's funny, Pulse Point, sometimes it'll capture all the automatic alarms and nothing else, and sometimes it captures none of the automatic alarms, so I don't totally know how that works. But I do know that on rainy days, the automatic alarms go bananas. I know the fire code only gets upgraded every once in a while, but is that something we could address with fire code to say, look, they need additional waterproofing within the system to ensure that we don't have this issue? Or is there any kind of a fix it we can give, because it seems like it's a waterproofing issue?
Yes, so that we haven't dug that deep into that yet, but that's something we could bring, in the future and work with, the code to get that in there if possible. So the problem is there's so many different ages of buildings with different types of systems as they upgrade them, and if we do get that in the fire code, then that could eventually work towards us in a positive way in decreasing those.
Yeah, so it's, otherwise I think we're just going to be telling them again, it's wet. So yeah, I think to the extent that you could start to think about what that and put that in your kind of action plan for the unwanted alarms, that when the time comes for an upgrade to code, that we put the appropriate upgrades in there, so that when there are upgrades to alarm systems, that they do start to improve the waterproofing on there, so that we don't have that happen. And then on the ordinance related to burglar alarms, so you said that I appreciate you guys looking into it. Why doesn't MFC track that data, or why doesn't NFIRS or whatever the various systems are?
The burglar alarm, at least the way it's been explained to me, is it's a whole separate system. We did meet with Metro. We are not tracking it. I know that might have been a suggestion in the past from you. At least it was non-conclusive in regard to what Metro could do, but we'll continue to work with Metro and see if there's some type of that they could capture that information. But at least the initial look at it is we're not tracking that at all.
So it's one of those things that the field will report. It's hard to know how often it happens, because I'm sure it's super annoying when it does. So it probably just sort of sticks out. It's hard to know if there's actually a magnitude of problem there. But and there's nothing in the NFIRS system are they getting better at coding things as unwanted alarms?
We're getting better. So it's just a matter of educating our members and ensuring that we're following up on the NFIRS. So the Geographical Bureau commanders all the way down are stressing that point of accurate information going into NFIRS. Okay,
because then it seems like maybe that's rather than MFC having to track it, if the members are, there is a code in NFIRS for them to do that, right?
For burglar alarms, I don't think that there is one, but we'll look.
Okay, there isn't one.
So.
Okay, so maybe. I'm not an expert on NFIRS by any stretch, but if there is a way to capture that in there so that the members do have a way to report it somehow, or even if they can record it somewhere, just I'm all about putting our reports where our mouth is. So if there is actually it's actually an issue out there, then they should be reporting it, and we should be referring that to LAPD. I don't even think we need a separate ordinance for it. The LAPD can go ahead and drop a hammer on them with what they've got. So it's not really any additional work for us, as long as we know that we can report it.
Right.
Is my understanding. Okay. Could be wrong. Okay, just on the city ordinance, what's the status on the ordinance around cost recovery?
The status is we're in the final stages of actually going to Public Safety Committee on the ordinance side of things. So we've been working very closely with the city attorney. The language has been approved, and now we're ready to go to Public Safety Committee. I believe it's in a week or two that we're going to be going there. And then it'll go to full council.
Okay, and then the commission's involvement would be in setting of the fees on the annual basis, is that right? Or will we ever even see the ordinance?
No, you'll see. We'll come back through, and we can report on that. And we're still working on the actual third-party vendor and piggybacking off of a contract once we identify that. Okay. And we've already identified the first initial steps that we'll take with how we're going to utilize the ordinance and what we're going to be tracking.
Okay, and then my last question would be just around just the overall data. I remember when I started here 6 years ago, we got the stats like 25% of the alarms were automatic or false alarms, right? So now that we have, in theory, much better data, can we get some sort of a an update on, when we get to the end of 2018 of automatic alarms is the trend, and now we actually know what the numbers are, because I think the magnitude of the problem has always been a little bit in question of whether this is truly a quarter of all of our alarms or if it's something less, and whether we're double dispatching and blah, blah, blah. So if that's something we could try to just nail down and say, this is the actual magnitude of the problem, because that will give us a sense of year to year if we're actually making a dent in this as a problem.
Right. Sure,
Great.
we can do that.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks. Do we need to move
Do
on
we-
it?
Great. So move to readopt the recommendations for, this is item 4E.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, so now
Aye. Thank you.
back to our regular agenda items. 5A is report by the department on the update of the Los Angeles Fire Department Youth Development Program.
Good morning, President Ibarra, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Gonzalez, and Acela. My name is Christina Kepner, Battalion Chief assigned to the Firefighter Recruitment Section. So yes, today I'm going to go ahead and update you on several recommendations that were made by the Board of Fire Commissioners to assist in the management of all LEFD youth programs. I'm going to start with our cadet program. The primary objective of the cadet program redesign is to standardize the training curriculum amongst all cadet posts. So this includes dissemination of a cadet manual, consistent use of a task book, standardized orientations, and bureau training days. So some of the accomplishments over the past year that we have made towards this is we have implemented an electronic application and initial critical incident application youth tracking system so that we can now track all of our cadets, and anyone can pull up their information, medical emergency information, contact information from any fire station that they are riding out at. Additionally, we have 168 cadets that are currently in that system, and we still have some other cadets that are not yet in there, but all the post advisors are working on getting them in as soon as possible. We have Operation South Bureau training. We had that in October. It was the first bureau training for the cadets. It was very successful up at Fire Station 40. We've had individualized visits and training with all cadet advisors, where we were able to give them the code of conduct, cadet manual, and task books. Were all disseminated to them. The cadet program wait list, which we have a few hundred kids on the wait list currently for the cadet program, that's being addressed by funneling them through some of our other programs, such as Girls Camp and the Youth Fire Program. So one of our big successes is actually the pathways that we've been able to create with our 4 different youth programs, everything from the basic orientation of the Girls Camp and Youth Fire Program all the way up to the more intense cadet program. So this is also a way of them to see if they're really interested in this career and putting the time and effort into being a cadet. Additionally, we have 7 cadets that we sponsored in paramedic school this year, and 2 cadets that have been sponsored through Fire Academy programs. We're also in the process of researching and already developing a train-to-hire program for the cadets, such as the ambulance operator program, as we previously discussed. All right, and in 2018, we have 168 cadet participants in our program. The Youth Fire Instruction Recruitment and Education Program, or Youth Fire Program, this is an introductory pathway for interested members to participate in other youth programs, such as the cadet program. This is the 8-week youth academy, and in June, we graduated 160 youth in a combined ceremony for the Metro, Harbor, and East LA College Youth Fire programs. We also implemented a pilot program this year that we completed with East LA College, offering the Youth Fire program specifically for students in our high school magnet program, 11th and 12th graders, and college credit was given for Fire Technology 201 through this academy as well. So currently this year in 2018, we've had 327 participants through our Youth Fire program. Next is the High School Magnet program. We currently have 4 high schools that are involved in this program: Banning, Wilson, Dorsey, and Monroe. Some of the accomplishments this year that we've made are approving the name of the magnet program to the Firefighter Emergency Medical Services Magnet. We completed the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, between LAFD, LAUSD, and each of the fire magnet schools. We've also established a cadre of firefighters to assist our staff in facilitating the PE classes, as one of our challenges is staffing, and we're continuously working on that. And standardization of a high school course sequence, in addition to their core academic requirements, that's currently in the approval process by LAUSD and Linked Learning. This year, we have 328 students in our high school magnet programs. And finally, our girls' camp. The primary goal of the girls' camp is to sustain at least 2 camps per year, rotating them throughout the city. In 2018, we hosted 2 girls' camps, one in the San Fernando Valley and one in central Los Angeles. And we had a total of 164 participants between both of those camps. The equipment has been acquired specifically for the camp at this point, and it's being stored at our training facility with the capability of mobile transport, which has really helped us be able to facilitate the program. Overall, we've had 987 youth served in LAFD programs this year, and 30% of the youth attended multiple LAFD programs, which has really been our goal, to get them involved in multiple programs, like I said, from orientation to more extensive training, and get them prepared for a position with the LAFD. We've standardized liability waivers, including media and social media clauses, code of conduct training given to all LAFD members working with youth, the tracking system for cadets. We have electronic applications for all of our youth programs for tracking and data to be able to keep those metrics. And then we have, over the past several months, we've collaborated with LAPD cadet and magnet coordinators to enhance our policies and coordinate activities between both LAFD and LAPD, so that we can really be an all-encompassing city youth program. None of this work could have been done truly without the hardworking staff at recruitment. Trish Arias, the senior project coordinator who came on board this past year, has been a huge help. And we also have a new captain assigned to our youth development program, Captain Mike Meza. He's been there for about a month, but he has hit the ground running and been able to help with many of these accomplishments already. So we will continue to evaluate effectiveness and redirect our efforts where necessary to improve the delivery of all LAFD youth programs. Again, currently our biggest challenge is to ensure effective standardized programs, and that's ensuring that we have the staff to do it, specifically in the high school magnet programs. To be able to have a firefighter assigned to each school would be our goal. Other than that, do you have any questions?
These numbers are great. I mean, just how this program and the multiple programs have grown is extremely impressive and a testament to your leadership, Trish. It's fantastic. I think that, and also that we have a pathway for residents of the city. I didn't know about the scholarships for paramedic school.
So it's not actually scholarships. We don't give the funding for it, but we will sponsor them so that they can actually get a spot in the class.
Oh, can you explain that?
Sure. So, and I don't know all the details. Maybe someone from EMS might know more than myself, but I know we have a certain amount of spots per paramedic class for the LAFD, and if they're not filled by firefighters, we can offer them to cadets. So we hold interviews once a year with all of our cadets that are interested in going to paramedic school, and we can actually utilize those spots that are left over for cadets, but they still put forth the funding themselves.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you're getting a couple nods. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Great. And if you come in with a paramedic, do you get extra points? Bonus?
No, they're not bonused, but I believe they do get processed as soon as possible.
When I get them, there's multiple filters, but that is one of the the resume points that I always look for. We average about 15 medics per class. And I've heard of stories, cadets who are at fire stations, and the members of the station will pay for their EMT. I've heard of one example of a paramedic fee. The members of the station pass the hat and pay. So I think that's a good thing. I'd like to figure out a way to provide continual funding of that sort each year.
Right.
And we're just starting that process.
Excellent. I know, just capturing that, so that we can keep them. Don't go to county,
Yes.
I'm just saying. I mean, yeah. Yes, and then I'm sure you have some questions. The EMT.
I don't know why you would say that, but I do.
It's just a lucky guess.
I just want to point out the amount of progress that has been made on the youth programs in the last 4 years since we kind of started talking about it. I know it always feels slow. It always feels slow for me because we all, I think, kind of think of an idea and everybody agrees it's a good idea, and then it just takes some time to get there. And so, copying to my own impatience, but we're. The last meeting we had where we had the district LUSD there talk about the magnet programs and looking at some of these things taking shape, this just feels like really like real progress in the direction that we want to go. And I want to give credit where credit is due to our department staff who's moved this forward. Because the accomplishments for this year are really concrete. The standardization, you don't get, it's kind of like remodeling when if you've ever like fixed your house and you kind of, if you do a repipe, you don't see it. It doesn't feel like the house feels any better, but it was really important because you fixed the system and now you have hot water. So a lot of these things that we're doing, my point is just simply that these are some of the detailed nitty-gritty things that are fundamental to a program running the way it's supposed to run. And to see these things starting to take shape is great. I love that we have a pathway out there. The electronic application, which I think was developed by a volunteer, is that right? The tracking system?
No, that was actually developed with Ron Corona and Trish.
Oh, well, great job. And then we also had some volunteer support. I think we had a bunch of volunteers who have been supporting the program, and I think hopefully we're going to see them here at Commission at some time in the future to give them their due. But really exciting stuff happening. The Leaders for Life, which is mentioned in here, is that in the budget right now?
The Learning for Life is actually, yes, I did request it through the budget. I'm not sure.
Well, I'll save it for the budget item, which will be coming up. The paramedic school, it is great to hear people being sponsored through that. That just, I think, adds urgency to this train to hire idea, because the long-standing beef about the cadet program is that we have these cadets that come through, we sponsor them for paramedic school, and then they get hired somewhere else when all they want to do is be hired here, and we have invested all this in them. So, I would love to see that as something that we're able to talk about in more detail by the next quarter that we see you here, of what that can look like. Because if past is any prologue, it will take us another year to actually put it into action. So just my impatience coming through. It's, to me, the other thing I want to point out is if you look at the diversity here, we've got solid diversity here in terms of what the program, who we're pulling into our program. And even although we've got a little ways to go with gender, we have a pipeline now that we can start to pull in. And so I would hate to lose that diverse pipeline that we are creating. That pipeline it's a 5-year lag potentially before we start to see them come into the program. But once we've got them in, we have this opportunity that I would hate to lose. I also think that as we start to pull these folks into our cadet program, it also starts to change attitudes at the station level when you meet really motivated young people who maybe don't look exactly like your stereotypical firefighter, and you see that these young people are really motivated to have a lot to offer. And so I really am excited to see that pipeline take shape and for us to take advantage of the investment that we're putting in on them. On the cadet wait list, two things I say about that. One is that if we have a cadet wait list, it just tells me like we have some investment to do as our department to try to be able to meet the demand. And so, just always continue to think about what can we do to make having a cadet post something that more people want to do and do well. I know you are thinking about that, and there is, there may be more budget questions associated with that, which, certainly interested in continue to entertain. But the other piece is just I want to make sure that we are honoring our residency directive, that to be in the fire, in any of our fire programs, the first priority goes to individuals who reside within the city of LA or within LAUSD. So are we keeping track of that for our cadet program?
Yes, we're keeping track of residency for all of our programs.
Okay. And are we meeting that goal?
Yes, right now our the main priority is to open up more cadet posts so that we can intake more of all the kids on the wait list. But yes, we will prioritize those that are residents of the city.
Yeah, really, if we have no spots, the only spots that should be being filled are those first must be from kids who have residency. I think we said within LAUSD. It's not right otherwise. Okay. So thank you for staying on top of that. And generally, yeah, I'm really excited by the progress we're making here, and looking forward to you continuing to advocate for more staff to support this worthwhile program. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. The EMT certification.
Yes.
I missed the last meeting, so is that paid for by?
So this is we had a great
I thought that
conversation.
This is fantastic that it's included, that they can opt
Yeah.
into it.
Have we heard back from the district about this?
Trish, have we heard back?
Okay.
What are you referring to?
It was-
So-
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. We're referring to offering EMT to seniors in our high school magnet program as part of their senior year curriculum, or potentially working with the adult night schools for those kids that are interested, that it would be paid for, and they would be able to take that class in addition to their normal
So this
courses.
is for magnet.
Yes, high school magnet.
Yeah. So the original idea was, can we get them the EMT before they graduate? That ran into a host of issues.
They need to be 18, right?
You only have to be. Well, don't get me started. But the point is, there's a host of issues. Call me. What we landed on as a really nice solution is that we asked the district if they would guarantee EMT class for free in their existing adult schools if the kids graduate from the magnet in good standing. And so they are looking into that, but the LAUSD adult schools offer the class. It's not a huge number every year, so we're hoping the district will come back and say that they could do it. They would save spots that potentially they would waive the fee for that class. So that's the working question right now.
Yes.
But that would be amazing, because then they could finish and they could go straight in to it, either in a day school or an evening school, and be finished by the end of the summer when they turn 18, take the test, and be ready to come work for us,
Yes.
or go to college and get a job,
Yes.
Or both.
or both.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
I would like to just commend the chief and Trish, because I know that they've done a lot of work. We've had a lot of conversations about the work that they're doing, and to hear them say that they're finished with some of the work that I knew that they were working on is great. And I'm really happy with the naming and the MOU. That you guys are really moving fast, because that was just a few months ago that we were saying you're working on it, and now it's finished. So they are really, really doing great work. And I would hope that someday we'll be able to have the EMT training in senior year, so that they're career ready. Just take the test when they turn 18 would be my ideal situation. But I'm really happy that with the work that you're doing. With the cadet program and the wait list, do we know by areas who has the longest wait list?
We are tracking that.
Okay, whenever you do get it, let me know. I'd like to know which areas actually have the longest wait list. But I commend you, and keep up the good work. Trish, you're worth all your money. And more, probably. We're so glad that she's with you, and Captain Chief See, I've known Chief Kepner a long time, so I have to go through all the steps. Chief Kepner, thank you very much for your leadership.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and really, I couldn't do it without, we do have Trish and Captain Mesa, but the rest of the recruitment staff has been integral in this. Captain Nahara, Captain Hawkins, and then the many, many volunteers in each of these programs, from the cadet advisors to volunteers in the Youth Fire program. I do hope to recognize them at commission sometime soon.
That'd be great.
Be happy to. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for your report.
Okay, move to receive and file item 5A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, and we don't have the response vehicle report today. So 5C is report by the department on the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Emilio Rodriguez with the Administrative Services Bureau. Pleased to present to you the FY 1920 proposed budget request for fire. The proposed budget continues in support of the Mayor's priority of ensuring our communities are the safest in the nation, as well as the Department's own strategic plan and operational priorities. The Department's focus, as shown in the budget request itemized in the attachments of the report before you, is on funding for recruit training with 2 classes for 130 recruits in the Drill Tower 81 in the Valley. This has been scaled back from 3 classes in recent years to maintain attrition. Continuing on successful innovations through expansion of the APRUs, the Advanced Provider Response Units, and fast response vehicles for wider coverage, as well as a continuation of the SOBR unit. And I understand there's a desire to expand the SOBR unit to provide broader coverage throughout a workday. Continuing the restoration of resources through safer grant support, including a light force unit in Wilmington. Providing EMS response in high call areas through the addition of 2 platoon duty ambulances, specifically covering fire stations 13 and 73, and staffing to balance platoon duty coverage in the field and in dispatch operations. Additional youth program staffing and expense funding to support magnet and cadet programs. And just dovetailing on Chief Kepner's presentation, the request is to add an additional firefighter on special duty, along with expense and program equipment. Fire inspection and enforcement staffing for operations with underground storage tanks, abandoned oil wells, retailers, and establishments that handle carbon dioxide, namely soda fountains, and brush clearance at homeless encampments. Restoring funding for standards of cover study, and just to conclude, other major requests include field equipment and technology upgrades to optimize firefighter and public safety, efficiencies in the field and response times, including first responder equipment such as helmets, rescue gear, camera equipment, defibrillators and EMS monitors, and wildland gear. Funding for turnout maintenance to better align with MFPA standards. The MICLA fleet replacement program to maintain a replacement cycle for apparatus and field vehicles, and technology funding to upgrade workstations throughout the department and enhance broadband capabilities in the field, and staffing to manage the development of the fire inspection management system. Some of the requests, as you'll note from attachment B of the report, are presented as requests from the unappropriated balance. What this means is that the funding request is contingent upon certain conditions being met for some of the resources we're seeking to leverage, such as grant funding applications for critical field equipment, or funding that would materialize through partnerships, such as for the APRU program with local hospital organizations. Collectively, the department's budget requests amount to about $727 million, which includes the MICLA and UB components. The recommendations before you request that the board approve the list of proposed budget requests with any modifications as desired by the members, of course. authorize the department to prepare all necessary documents and return with a final proposed budget, which we hope to do by first meeting in November. That concludes my presentation. Welcome any questions.
So for the the ones that come from unappropriated balance,
Yes.
does that mean that they don't get funded if we don't get the partnership?
Essentially, that's the idea. The point of putting it in the UB is that it does not impact the department's operational funding. So if we do get funding secured through grant sources or hospital partnerships, we can front fund the costs through a separate UB appropriation, which is basically the city's general fund. So when it comes time to reimbursing, we would basically reimburse the UB and not impact the department's budget. But if they're not funded all together through grant sources or otherwise, then it's mayor and council's directive to pretty much rescind those appropriations.
Okay, but on the front end, they come from that fund.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
No, you.
Save the longest for last. I just wanted to point out that there was $250,000 for a high-level assessment of workplace culture that isn't in this, but I think it's being worked out at a high level between the mayor's office and the department. It's an assessment that's going to be managed by the I team. So I don't know if it's going into the budget by November 1st, or we had discussed it, but I just want to put it out there that that was a request.
Yeah, let me comment on that. I've been speaking with Deputy Mayor Gurrell about the I-team coming to the LAFD like they had done with LAPD to do some assessment surveys and make recommendations. And I'm told that it looks very promising that it will be funded through the mayor's office. We haven't decided if it'll be in the November document that comes before this commission or it'll be in the mayor's document. Either way, we'll know by the next time we present it to commission.
Okay, a couple of things to ask. I'm curious about. So, based on the youth program presentation, so I don't see the Leaders for Life funding in here anywhere. Is that something that we can add in?
Let me speak to that point as well. If you go to priority item number 16,
yeah,
we're going to put as the new 17 because we were working on a potential grant through the CalJack program because Sacramento City Fire Department had done that with their youth to kind of train to hire, their form of train to hire. So we were talking about putting in the UB, then we decided perhaps we should just make a line item. And that's where it'll live the next time it comes before this body. It'll be item number 17, train to hire, $200,000 to provide our cadets the opportunity to make student worker wage at 4 of our cadet posts.
That's great.
And how many will it be available to?
We don't have the exact number because we have to decide what's the length of the work week. I'm thinking it's a max of 20 because they're going to school, so we have to figure that out. Maybe weekends. So we'll have a more definitive number when we come back in November.
Okay, but that's great. The Leaders for Life thing is though that's the it is a structure to put around the youth program that allows for insurance and training, and it provides specific training around like child abuse prevention and things like that. So that is something a little different. I think there's a cost per head associated with it. So I'd ask that you speak with the youth team over there about it and add that in because it would make a big difference as from a nuts and bolts level of running a really good program to have the Leaders for Life. We used to be associated with them, and then there was some controversy about it, which made sense at the time. We dropped it out, but I think that's been solved. So it would be a significant decrease in liability for the department if we actually had the Leaders for Life association. So check it out. But it's frankly, it's a risk mitigation for us to do it. So please talk with the crew there about
Yeah,
adding it in.
I'll check in with Chief
Okay.
Kepner's group.
Okay. So on the APRUs, specifically the sober unit, I know I've brought this up separately, and it's something to think about. I just want to kind of put it on the record. I would love for us to be able to get at least one of our units on a 20-hour, if not a 24-hour schedule, so that we can see what it's like to have one of those advanced units operate for longer, particularly the sober unit, to be able to operate 7 days a week, for most of the day, if not all day long. I think as we've seen it before. I think something that I think we all agree on is that people don't stop getting inebriated after the sober unit goes off shift. So it would be great for that car to be able to be 24/7. But if not that, then at least 7 days. So I understand in order to do that, there needs to be you need to hire another crew for that, and that there's hiring issues. But is that in here?
Emilio, I can speak
Okay.
to that because it's not. The ideas I think are good ones, and we agree that the sober unit is an effective tool. Right now, it's Monday through Thursday, and our proposal is that we add a second team to cover Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then one overlap day with the first unit. That's contingent upon Exodus agreeing to provide the nurse practitioner and the caseworker, and we're going to put out a notice to test the temperature of our members who would like to work the PM session. That'll give us 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. The second piece of your comment has to do with the 20-hour per day coverage. And I think we would do the same thing. We would pick our busiest APRU in the field and offer a PM shift. So with the 10 hours in the AM, with the 10 hours in the PM, we have 20 hours a day for 4 days a week.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, the goal would be to have somebody on 24-hour duty. But incrementally, I think that this is a much easier path for the next step.
Yeah, and that makes sense as an incremental improvement. I would like to see us moving in that direction. So to the extent that is, I guess my concern is if it's not in the budget somewhere, and then we get down the line, and then the budget gets approved, and then it's not in there, and then we find out that we actually could do it, but now we're stuck waiting a whole another year to do it. Good
point. And the next version that comes before the commission will have that in the budget.
Great. Related to just general EMS, a while ago I had a conversation with the team at EMS Bureau, and one of the ideas that came up with this idea of a civilian patient care coordinator. I don't know if any of them are left in the room. Looks like they may have left. But the idea, as I understood it, Chief Foreman, does this ring a bell?
I have some comments on that as well.
Okay, great.
I had an email conversation with Peter Lynn, who's in charge of LASA, the Homeless Services Authority. And we were digging down with more information. I got a description of the position from Dr. Eckstein, and I communicated with Peter, and Peter connected Dr. Eckstein with his program manager. So they're working on potentially providing that position through LASA. We'll know more in the next few days.
Okay, yeah, that would be, I think, my sense is that could be a real game changer for us from an EMS patient care delivery to be able to actually coordinate the work of our APs together to try to say, how can we target their work in different ways? And the sum of those parts is greater than the whole. That's the expression, right? But if there are synergies there between each of those units, and if they are coordinated by somebody, we get far more bang for the buck than if they are each sort of working independently. So thank you for continuing to look into that. What happened to the AP at MFC, the Advanced Provider MFC? Did that go away, or is that still?
No, that one we're going to use those APs to be the manager of the telemedicine program. And when we posted those vacancies, we got a lot more candidates. And Dr. Exting tells me we have one solid candidate right now, and we're looking for the second person. Our goal is to have that telemedicine program up and running by the end of this fiscal year. So they haven't gone away. They were funded through the Mayor's Innovation Grant. And with the metrics that we anticipate, we think that we can get long-term funding for it.
So is it in here?
It's not in here because we were already awarded the money for this current fiscal year out of the Innovation Fund.
Got it. We just need to use it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the so I know we've I understand this may not be a budget item, but the question of our some of our VStaff 800s, I presume we have flexibility in there to do what we do. I guess if you could explain why that doesn't need more funding if we wanted to move some of our 10-hour 800s to 12 or 24. Why don't we need more money to do that?
We have a line item for that amount, and Chief Poyer and his staff regularly tweak the hours, the start hours, the length of the hours. And last time I counted, I think we have about 13 V-staffed ambulances, and they're various hours, various days. So we stay within budget, and we're able to change the hours to determine the level of interest for our members to work it. And we're doing that with our 800 at Fire Station 9. We're converting it back to the PM hours. We converted that to the AM. We found out there was not anybody willing to work those hours. Mm-hmm. So we put it back to PM, and then we've determined that's the best model for that assignment. And we're always assessing opportunities to tweak it to increase the number of days that it's staffed. The report we got last week, we were at about 52% citywide for the week, and that is trending up as our vacancies are trending down.
Okay, yeah. I mean, 50% is an average, so I'm sure there are some that are higher and some that are lower. But I remain somewhat concerned that it's something I'd like to keep an eye on of how that staffing looks, because I know those 800s are a staffed 800 can make a critical difference in a battalion in terms of spreading the workload around and response times if they are there. And so if we have V-staff 800s that are staffed less than 50% of the time, it feels like a missed opportunity, but also just a decrease in the service. As a Hollywood resident, I know that the V-staff 800 in my area is not staffed. I don't believe it's staffed more than 50% of the time, and that means it means a busier battalion. So if the 10-hour, because many of them are 10 hours, if the 10 hours aren't getting staffed, then I would say look at the 12 or the 24. I'm not sure I'm willing to watch it for a little while longer, but I'm not sure I buy the conventional wisdom that people are going to take the 10 hours even as overtime dries up. It may be one of those things where you can't convince people the money's not worth it. So I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to keep an eye on that and to have the flexibility to be able to do 12 or 24 hours in some cases, if that means we're more likely to get them staffed. So I hear what you're saying, that you don't think that needs to be a budget item at this point. But I would like to keep an eye on that and to be able to know how that's going. And if we truly aren't staffing it, as the overtime is drying up, then I think that's something we need to be looking pretty seriously at, is how do we keep those things staffed up so that we're actually getting benefit.
If I could add comments on that, I think those are all valid points. It's a matter of, do we staff a 24-hour resource that's running 4 calls a day? And it's really not a cost-effective equation. So we're always fire statting first in districts, and we're playing with hours. And Chief Poyer and his staff have been doing great work in terms of trying to optimize the maximum impact of a rescue when we're hiring overtime. But I hear your point. In last budget year, we asked for, I think it was $400,000 worth of V hours to staff up more of these V-staffed RAs, the 13 I talked about originally. So we will continue to monitor and we'll continue to tweak the hours, and we'll let you know on our progress in that area.
Yeah, that sounds good. Look, if they're running 4 calls a day, move the car. I mean, but you know, there's plenty of districts here that could use it. So great, keep me posted on it. But I just those 800s are critical for us. I think our everybody knows our BLS load just continues to rise, and so I'm primarily interested in them being staffed in the busy areas where we need them. Thanks. Okay. On the, I had also asked about assessments. You responded that there's a budget wash because of the FLASA, so I get that. I am interested in a longer discussion, which I did request about a year ago, about how we are moving. What is our plan for assessment? If that's not a budget item, then I would ask that we take it outside of a budget item so that we can understand what the plan is to get to assessment for all companies. The last one is just a while ago.
Can I speak to that last one?
Yeah, sure, yes. Definitely.
Our goal is to get to 100% rotational fire stations. We have about 20 left, and we brought back Engine 1, and that's a new assessment company. Engine 38, when Truck 38 comes in July, will be an assessment engine. Our goal is to provide an increase of 2 to 3 assessment companies per fiscal year, with the end goal being that 100% of our fire stations are rotational.
And I support that goal, and I'm just interested to hear how the planning is going to work to get there and when we'll get there. So if that could be something that we bring back here per the request from a year ago, that would be great. The last thing is on the mental health first aid. Back in April, I think there was a newspaper article about a mental health first aid program in Long Beach, which has been, by all accounts, very successful. Our own psychologist went down to look at it. Her report was that it was very good. Not only does it improve preparation of our members in the field to deal with people having mental health crises as patients, which certainly I think is an increasing number of people, but it also has a very important and tangible impact on their ability to support each other when they to recognize moments of mental health crisis among their colleagues. As you so eloquently stated earlier, that safety is a paramount priority, and at the memorial you pointed out a really important fact, which is that there are more deaths during line of duty due to suicide, or during active duty during suicide, than from accidents or in the field. So I understand that this can be funded through vet funds. If that's the case, that is great. But again, I would hate to see this get held up for another year because the vet funds are too complicated for us to utilize. So if they cannot be utilized for this, then I would ask that they be in the budget line. And I will also, I don't totally understand how the vet funds are used, but I thought that they had to get some sort of there's a complicated approval there for is that not the case, or is this definitely they?
That's CalJack. It's a more complicated. Vet funds, not so much.
And those are for employee.
Yes.
But it's not. So what Glazier's talking about is different. If we're talking about
no, this is it's training for employees for our members.
There would be an internal benefit. That's what your point earlier was, that our members would benefit internally, as well as recognizing patients who are going through a mental health emergency.
That's training, and
yes,
it would be a training program.
Yeah, I think the feedback, I concur with what you're hearing. Dr. Madrid's reporting that it looks very promising, and if that is her final conclusion, we will pursue that either through VET or possibly CalJack.
Okay. I would love to see that move forward. It seems like it is a really, it could be the right thing at the right time and solve a couple of really important needs for us right now. So if it's not going to be in the budget, I get it. I again take it at face value that it's something that can be funded through vet funding. I just ask that it be moved forward sooner rather than later, and not backburnered for much longer. Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, somebody,
Yep, move to receive and file item 5C.
Second?
all in favor?
All right.
And we don't have any public comments, so we can adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
All right.